The sound of gunshots echoed across the rugged terrain, pushing Katherine Vance further into the dense forest as she whipped her horse to gallop faster. The pounding of hooves against hard-packed earth matching the frantic beating of her heart. The year was 1876, and the western territories of Colorado remained largely untamed, much like the fears that drove her relentlessly forward, away from a past that seemed determined to catch up with her no matter how far she ran. She had been on the move for 3 weeks now, ever since fleeing Denver in the dead of night with nothing but a hastily packed saddlebag and the clothes on her back. Katherine pulled sharply on the reins as her chestnut mare crested a steep ridge, revealing a small mining settlement nestled in the valley below. Silverton, if her rough map served her correctly. The sight of civilization brought conflicting emotions: relief at finding potential shelter before nightfall, and dread at exposing herself to curious eyes that might recognize her face. "Just one night, Penny," she whispered to her horse, patting its sweaty neck. "Then we'll be gone before dawn." The main street of Silverton appeared busy despite the approaching dusk. Men in work clothes filtered out of the mines, their faces darkened with coal dust as they headed toward the town's 2 saloons. Katherine kept her hat pulled low, riding slowly past the general store and small sheriff's office. She had learned that in these frontier towns, a woman alone attracted attention she could not afford. The Silverton Lodge stood at the far end of the street, a 2-story wooden structure that had seen better days but appeared clean enough. Katherine dismounted stiffly, her body aching from too many days in the saddle. She secured Penny to the hitching post and reached into her saddlebag, counting what remained of her money. $3.27. Not enough to last much longer. "Need some help with that horse, madam." Katherine startled at the deep voice behind her, nearly dropping her meager savings. She whirled around to face a tall man with broad shoulders and kind eyes the color of a summer sky. His weathered face suggested he spent most of his days outdoors, and the way he carried himself, confident but not threatening, marked him as someone accustomed to handling himself in difficult situations. "No, thank you," she replied curtly, turning away. "I can manage. Suit yourself." The stranger tipped his hat respectfully. "That's a fine animal, but she looks about ready to collapse. Been riding hard." Katherine stiffened. "Just passing through, one night, that's all." The man nodded, studying her face a moment too long for comfort. Katherine felt the familiar flutter of panic. Did he recognize her? Had the posters already made it this far west? "Name's Ryan Wade," he said, offering his hand. "I run cattle about 10 miles north of here." "Katherine," she replied, deliberately omitting her last name as she briefly shook his hand. "If you'll excuse me, Mr. Wade, I need to secure a room before dark." "Of course." Ryan stepped aside but glanced at Penny with concern. "I could stable your horse for the night." "Mrs. Holbrook, who runs this place, charges extra for that, and I've got business with the blacksmith anyway." Katherine hesitated. The offer was tempting. Penny did need proper care, and saving even a few cents mattered. Still, trusting a stranger went against every instinct that had kept her alive these past weeks. "Why would you help me?" she asked suspiciously. Ryan shrugged. "It's getting dark, you're clearly exhausted, and we take care of travelers in these parts. No other reason needed." Something in his straightforward manner calmed her slightly. "Thank you then, I would appreciate it." Ryan nodded and took Penny's reins. "Get some rest, Miss Katherine. Your horse will be at the smithy when you're ready." Katherine watched him lead Penny away before entering the lodge. Inside, she paid for the cheapest room available and climbed the narrow staircase to the 2nd floor. The small chamber contained just a bed, washstand, and chair, but to Katherine, it felt like luxury after sleeping under the stars for so many nights. She locked the door and pushed the chair beneath the handle for good measure before allowing herself to collapse onto the thin mattress. Only then did she notice her hands were shaking. 3 weeks on the run. 3 weeks since she had fled her fiancé's house in Denver, leaving behind the life she had carefully constructed. 3 weeks since Richard Blackstone had revealed his true nature and what he expected of her once they were married. Katherine closed her eyes as unwelcome memories flooded back. Richard's political ambitions, his connections to the railroad barons, the special arrangements he had planned for her to entertain his business associates, and when she had refused, the beating that left her barely able to walk. The threats if she ever told anyone what he really was beneath his respectable exterior. She had escaped that night, stealing enough money to buy a horse and fleeing west. But Richard's influence ran deep, and within days wanted posters bearing her likeness and accusations of theft had begun appearing in towns she passed through. A clever move. Who would believe her word against that of a prominent businessman and political hopeful? Katherine forced the memories away and focused on what mattered now, continuing west until she reached California. Perhaps there, in a big enough city, she could truly disappear. Sleep claimed her almost instantly, but dawn arrived too soon. Katherine woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was until the events of the previous day came flooding back. She dressed quickly, gathering her few possessions. The sooner she collected Penny and left town, the better. Outside, the early morning air carried a crispness that hinted at the approaching autumn. Katherine made her way to the blacksmith's shop, keeping her head down and avoiding eye contact with the few townspeople already out on the street. The blacksmith's yard was empty except for a boy sweeping the entrance. "Looking for Joe?" he asked, leaning on his broom. "He ain't here yet." "I'm looking for my horse," Katherine explained. "A chestnut mare. A man named Wade brought her here yesterday." The boy nodded. "Oh, Mr. Wade took her to his place, said she needed rest and proper feeding before traveling again." Katherine felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "He took my horse, without my permission?" "Yes, madam. Said to tell you to meet him at the general store when you're ready. He left this for you." The boy handed her a folded piece of paper. Katherine snatched it and read the brief message. "Your mare needs at least a day's rest. Meet me at Thompson's General Store. R.W." Anger and fear warred within her. Without Penny, she was stranded. Was this some ploy to detain her until word of the supposed theft reached Silverton? Or worse, had Ryan Wade recognized her and already contacted Richard? She had no choice but to confront him. Katherine walked briskly to the general store, mentally calculating how far she could get on foot if necessary. Ryan Wade stood outside the mercantile, talking with an older man. He spotted her immediately and excused himself. "Good morning, Miss Katherine. I trust you slept well." "You took my horse," she accused without preamble. "I want her back now." Ryan's expression remained calm. "Your mare was near foundering. Another day of hard riding would have killed her. She needs rest, proper feed, and care." "That wasn't your decision to make." "Perhaps not," he conceded. "But I couldn't in good conscience watch you ride that animal into the ground. Whatever you're running from, it isn't worth killing a good horse over." Katherine felt blood drain from her face. "I'm not running from anything." Ryan's gaze was steady, not unkind but knowing. "I've been around long enough to recognize someone on the run. The way you keep looking over your shoulder, how you avoid using your full name, the state of your horse, it all tells a story. My circumstances are none of your concern, Mr. Wade. True enough. But I'm offering you a proposition that might help us both." He gestured toward the store. "I need to transport supplies to my ranch today. I could use an extra hand and you need your horse rested. Come help. Stay the night at my place and tomorrow I'll return your mare in better condition than you left her." Katherine's first instinct was to refuse, but practicality forced her to reconsider. Without Penny, she was vulnerable. And if Ryan had wanted to turn her in, he could have done so already. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked bluntly. Ryan's mouth quirked into a half-smile. "Same way I know I can trust you not to steal my wagon while I'm loading it. We don't, but sometimes taking a chance is all we've got." After a moment's hesitation, Katherine nodded. "One day, and then I leave, no questions asked." "Agreed." For the next hour, Katherine helped Ryan load supplies into his wagon, sacks of flour and sugar, crates of canned goods, tools, and fabric. Despite her reservations, she found herself relaxing slightly in his company. Ryan didn't pry, filling the silence instead with news about the territory and tales of his cattle operation. "Been ranching here 5 years now," he explained as they headed north out of town, the loaded wagon rumbling beneath them. "Came west after the war with not much more than the clothes on my back." "The war changed many lives," Katherine replied cautiously. Ryan nodded. "Lost my brother at Gettysburg. After that, nothing back east felt right anymore. Needed open spaces and a fresh start." He glanced at her. "Reckon lots of folks come west looking for that." Katherine remained silent, watching the landscape change as they traveled. Pine forests gave way to rolling meadows dotted with wildflowers, and in the distance, craggy mountain peaks still capped with snow despite the summer heat. It was beautiful in a raw, untamed way that touched something inside her. By mid-afternoon, they reached Ryan's ranch, a modest but well-maintained property with a sturdy log house, barn, and several outbuildings. A bunkhouse stood a short distance away, and Katherine could see 3 men working with cattle in a nearby corral. "It's not much compared to some spreads," Ryan said as he brought the wagon to a stop, "but it's mine, free and clear." There was pride in his voice, and Katherine found herself respecting that. "You've built something worthwhile here." Ryan's eyes crinkled at the compliment. "Thank you. Now let me show you to your horse. She's in the barn." Katherine followed him inside, where Penny stood in a clean stall, contentedly munching on hay. The mare looked better already, her coat brushed to a shine. "See, a little care makes all the difference," Ryan said, patting the horse's neck. Katherine ran her hand along Penny's flank, noting the improved condition. "Thank you for this. I haven't been able to care for her properly while traveling." "Running takes its toll on everyone involved," Ryan replied quietly, "including those trying to help." Their eyes met, and Katherine quickly looked away, uncomfortable with his perception. "I should help unload the wagon." Together with Ryan's ranch hands Miguel Daniel and an older man called Preacher, they unloaded the supplies. Katherine worked silently, aware of the curious glances from the men but grateful they asked no questions. As evening approached, Katherine helped Ryan's housekeeper, Mrs. Larson, prepare dinner. The simple domesticity of chopping vegetables and kneading bread dough felt strangely comforting after weeks of uncertainty. "Mr. Wade is a good man," Mrs. Larson commented as they worked. "Lost his wife in childbirth some years back before coming west. The baby, too. Doesn't talk about it much." Katherine absorbed this information silently. It explained something about the sadness she occasionally glimpsed behind his steady gaze. Dinner was a surprisingly pleasant affair, with the ranch hands sharing stories that had Katherine laughing despite herself. For a few hours, she almost forgot she was a woman on the run, with a price on her head and a dangerous man searching for her. After the meal, Ryan invited her to sit on the porch. The night was clear, stars scattered across the vast western sky like diamonds on black velvet. They sat in companionable silence, the only sound the occasional lowing of cattle and the chirping of crickets. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Ryan said finally. "First time I saw a night sky out here, I understood why people risk everything to come west." Katherine nodded. "It makes one feel small, but not in a frightening way." "Puts troubles in perspective," Ryan agreed. He hesitated, then added, "I saw the posters, Katherine." Her blood turned to ice. "What posters?" "The ones in Denver. Offering a reward for Katherine Vance, wanted for theft." His voice remained gentle. "They reached Silverton 2 days ago." Katherine's hand instinctively went to the knife hidden in her boot. "And you're planning to collect the reward?" Ryan looked genuinely hurt. "If that was my intention, would I have brought you to my home? Introduced you to my people? Then why tell me this now? Because you need to know that running isn't your only option." He turned to face her fully. "I don't know your story, but I recognize the look of someone escaping something worse than the law." Katherine's throat tightened. You know nothing about me. I know you're careful but not hardened. I know you're kind to animals and respectful to strangers. I know you work hard without complaint." Ryan's eyes held hers. "Those aren't the qualities of a thief." To her horror, Katherine felt tears threaten. She hadn't cried since the night she fled Denver, not even when the pain of her injuries made each breath an agony. "You can't help me. No one can." Maybe not, but sometimes just having someone believe your side of the story is a start. The sincerity in his voice broke something inside her. The story spilled out her engagement to Richard Blackstone, his respected position in Denver society, and the gradual revelation of his true nature. The final night when he had beaten her for refusing to comply with his business arrangements, and her desperate escape. "He accused me of stealing family heirlooms to discredit me," she finished, wiping angry tears. "Who would believe my word against his? He's friends with judges, newspapermen, even the territorial governor." Ryan had listened without interruption, his face growing increasingly grim. "Men like that exist everywhere, even out here, but so do people willing to stand against them. You don't understand. His reach is too long. Even if I could prove what he did, his friends would ensure it never saw a courtroom. Then we find another way." Ryan's voice was determined. "Running forever isn't living, Katherine. Trust me, I know." She looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" Ryan sighed, his gaze turning distant. "After I lost Sarah, my wife, and our son, I blamed myself, thought if I'd gotten the doctor sooner or if we'd lived closer to town. I ran from those thoughts, from my family's sympathy, from everything that reminded me of what I'd lost. Ended up here thinking distance would heal what time couldn't." "Did it work?" Katherine asked softly. "No, the pain followed me right across the country." His eyes returned to hers. "It wasn't until I stopped running and built something new that I started to feel alive again. Not healed completely, that may never happen, but living at least." Katherine considered his words. "Even if I wanted to stop running, I don't know how. He won't just forget about me." "Then we make sure he has reason to." Ryan leaned forward. "Every man, no matter how powerful, has secrets he doesn't want exposed. We find Blackstones." The word caught her off guard. Ryan's expression softened. "I'm offering to help, Katherine. Stay here while we figure this out. My ranch is remote enough that word won't reach Denver, and you'll have safe shelter and honest work if you want it. Why would you do this for a stranger?" "Because 12 years ago, I was the one who needed help, and a stranger took a chance on me." He smiled slightly. "Besides, you're not really a stranger anymore, are you?" Katherine felt something warm unfurl in her chest, hope, perhaps, or the first tentative trust she had allowed herself to feel in months. "I don't know. Sleep on it," Ryan suggested, rising to his feet. "Your horse needs another day's rest anyway. No decision has to be made tonight." That night, in the small but comfortable guest room, Katherine lay awake long after the household had gone quiet. Ryan's offer tempted her more than she wanted to admit. Not just the practical aspects, safety, shelter, distance from Denver, but the man himself. There was something about Ryan Wade that made her feel seen for the first time in years, but could she really trust him? Could she trust anyone after what Richard had done? Morning brought no clearer answers, but Katherine found herself agreeing to stay just a few more days to let Penny recover fully. Those days stretched into a week, and Katherine gradually fell into the rhythm of ranch life. She helped Mrs. Larson with household duties, learned to mend fences with Miguel, and even tried her hand at cattle driving under Ryan's patient instruction. "You're a natural horsewoman," he commented one afternoon as they rode the property boundaries. "Ever considered ranching as a profession?" Katherine laughed, a genuine sound that surprised her. "Hardly appropriate work for a banker's daughter and society fiancé. Seems to suit you better than Denver parlors." She couldn't disagree. The physical work and open spaces had awakened something in her that years of proper upbringing had suppressed. Here, miles from the nearest town, Katherine felt more herself than she had in years. Ryan, too, was becoming dangerously important to her. His steady presence, Quiet strength and occasional flashes of humor drew her like a moth to flame. She caught herself watching him as he worked with the cattle or repaired equipment, admiring not just his physical strength but his inherent decency. 2 weeks into her stay, Katherine was gathering eggs in the henhouse when the sound of approaching horses caught her attention. Peering through the window, she saw 3 riders entering the ranch yard. Her heart stuttered when she recognized the center-figure sheriff Thomas Collins from Denver, Richard's close friend and hunting companion. Katherine crouched behind the henhouse door, listening as Ryan greeted the men. His voice revealed nothing unusual, just the standard welcome of a rancher to visitors. "Looking for a woman," the sheriff's distinctive voice carried clearly. Katherine Vance, petite, auburn hair, green eyes, stole some valuable jewelry from a prominent Denver businessman. Trail led this direction. "Haven't seen anyone matching that description," Ryan replied evenly. "Not much traffic out this way except cattle buyers and supply wagons. Mind if we look around? Got a warrant here. Help yourself. My men will show you the property." "I was just heading into town for supplies." Katherine's pulse raced. If they searched thoroughly, they would find her. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. She closed her eyes, trying to control her panic. When she opened them, Ryan was standing in the doorway. "They're checking the main house first," he whispered. "Take my horse. He's saddled behind the barn. Ride to Preacher's cabin in the North Valley. He'll hide you until I return." "They'll know you helped me," Katherine protested. "Let me worry about that." Ryan pressed a small pistol into her hand. "Go now, while Miguel keeps them occupied." Katherine hesitated, then impulsively reached up and kissed him, a brief, desperate pressing of lips that conveyed everything she couldn't say. Before Ryan could respond, she slipped past him and ran crouched along the back of the outbuildings. Ryan's horse, a powerful black gelding, waited exactly where he'd said. Katherine mounted quickly and urged the animal north toward the foothills, keeping to the tree line to avoid being spotted. Behind her, she could hear raised voices but forced herself not to look back. Preacher's cabin was a small, well-concealed structure tucked into a stand of pines beside a bubbling creek. The old cowhand seemed unsurprised by her arrival. "Figured trouble was coming when I saw those riders," he commented, ushering her inside. "Boss sent word to expect you. Best settle in, might be a spell before it's safe." Hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. Katherine paced the small cabin, imagining every possible scenario. Had they arrested Ryan? Would they search until they found her? Should she keep running, this time all the way to California as originally planned? The sun was setting when hoofbeats approached the cabin. Katherine gripped the pistol Ryan had given her, taking position beside the window. Relief flooded her when she recognized his tall figure dismounting. "They've gone," Ryan announced as he entered. "Searched the whole property, but Miguel and Daniel convinced them you must have passed through days ago, heading for Wyoming." Katherine sank onto a chair. "Thank you, all of you. I don't deserve such loyalty." "Yes, you do." Ryan's eyes held hers. "But this changes things. They'll be watching the roads, checking towns. We need a more permanent solution." "I should leave," Katherine said firmly. "I've put you in enough danger. Running isn't the answer," Ryan countered. "I've been thinking about this for days. Blackstone wants you silenced, yes, but he also wants his reputation intact. That's his weakness." "What do you mean?" Ryan sat across from her. "I have a friend in Denver, a newspaper editor who owes me a favor. What if we prepared a full account of Blackstone's actions, with your sworn statement, and left it with instructions to publish if anything happens to you?" "A safeguard," Katherine mused. "But would it be enough?" "Combined with a letter to the territorial governor outlining specific instances of Blackstone's corruption and names of others involved, it might be." Ryan leaned forward. "Men like Blackstone survive by keeping their true nature hidden. The threat of exposure might be enough to make him back down. Or make him more determined to find me. That's why we don't send it yet. We prepare everything, then I deliver the message personally along with the information that copies are already safely stored with trusted individuals." Katherine shook her head in amazement. You've really thought this through. I told you, Ryan said softly. I'm not letting you run anymore. Something in his tone made her look up sharply. The intensity in his eyes took her breath away. Why? She whispered. Why risk everything for me? Ryan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. Because in 2 short weeks, you've become more important to me than I thought possible. Because I see your strength and your heart and I want to protect both. Because… He hesitated. Because I'm falling in love with you, Katherine Vance, and I think you might be feeling the same. The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Katherine felt tears sting her eyes. I'm afraid, she admitted. Not just of Richard, but of trusting anyone again. Of believing I deserve happiness. Fear is natural, Ryan said gently, but so is hope. And I'm hoping you'll trust me enough to stay and fight this battle together. Katherine looked at their joined hands, his strong and weathered from years of ranch work, her still bearing the faint marks of Richard's cruelty. 2 different pasts, but in this moment, a shared future seemed possible. Yes, she said finally, I'll stay and fight. The plan took weeks to implement. Katherine wrote a detailed account of Richard's abuse and corruption, including names, dates, and specific incidents of bribery and coercion she had witnessed. Ryan arranged for copies to be placed with his newspaper friend, a judge in Santa Fe, and his former commanding officer from the war, now a U.S. Marshal. Throughout these preparations, Katherine's feelings for Ryan deepened. Their connection grew through quiet conversations on the porch at sunset, shared work around the ranch, and the gradual healing of her wounded spirit. Ryan was patient, never pushing for more than she was ready to give, but making his feelings clear in countless small ways. 3 months after Katherine's arrival at the ranch, Ryan prepared to travel to Denver to confront Richard Blackstone. I don't like you facing him alone, Katherine protested the night before his departure. I won't be alone, Ryan assured her. Marshal Wilson will accompany me. Richard won't risk anything with a federal lawman present. Still, I should be there. These are my accusations. Ryan took her hands. Your safety matters more. If something goes wrong, I need to know you're protected. Katherine recognized the logic, even as she hated feeling helpless. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. Ryan drew her into his arms, and Katherine went willingly, resting her head against his chest. The steady beat of his heart had become her anchor in a world that had once seemed determined to break her. I love you, she whispered. The first time she had said the words aloud, Ryan's arms tightened around her. I've waited to hear that. I've felt it longer than I've been willing to admit, Katherine confessed. You gave me back my life, Ryan, not just safety but purpose, belonging. You did that yourself. I just provided the space for you to find your strength again. They stood together as darkness fell, the future uncertain but facing it united. Ryan's journey to Denver and back took 10 long days. Katherine threw herself into ranch work to manage her anxiety, learning to drive cattle alongside the men and helping Preacher mend tack in the evenings. When not working, she kept watch on the road from town, searching for any sign of Ryan's return. On the 11th day, as she was hanging laundry, Katherine spotted a cloud of dust approaching from the south. Her heart leaped as she recognized Ryan's distinctive riding posture. She dropped the wet sheets and ran to meet him, heedless of propriety. Ryan dismounted as she approached, his face weary but triumphant. It's done, he said simply, opening his arms to her. Katherine flew into his embrace. Tell me everything. Later, as they sat on the porch with coffee, Ryan recounted the confrontation. Blackstone denied everything at first, of course. But when Marshal Wilson presented the evidence we'd gathered and explained how many copies existed in secure locations, he changed his tune quickly. He just agreed to leave me alone, Katherine asked skeptically. Not immediately. But when faced with the choice between public disgrace and quietly letting go of his vendetta against you, self-preservation won out. Ryan smiled grimly. The marshal made it clear that any further pursuit of you would trigger immediate publication of your account, plus a federal investigation into his business dealings. So it's really over. Katherine hardly dared believe it. As over as these things can be. Blackstone will save face by telling people you two mutually broke the engagement, and he's discovered the missing jewelry was actually misplaced by a servant. Ryan took her hand. You're free, Katherine. Your name is cleared and you can go anywhere you choose. Katherine looked out over the ranch, the rolling pastures where cattle grazed, the garden she had helped expand, the distant mountains that had become as familiar to her as the lines on her own palms. I'm already exactly where I choose to be, she said softly. Ryan's face lit with hope. Does that mean you'll stay, not because you have to hide, but because you want to be here? With me? Katherine turned to face him fully. I stopped running weeks ago, Ryan. My heart stopped first and eventually my mind caught up, she smiled. This is home now, you are home. Ryan pulled her gently to her feet, then surprised her by dropping to one knee. I've been carrying this since before I left for Denver, he said, producing a simple gold ring with a small pearl. It was my mother's. I've been waiting for the right moment to ask if you'd consider becoming my wife. Katherine's vision blurred with tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes. 1 year later, Katherine stood on the same porch, watching as Ryan taught their newly adopted daughter to ride her first pony. 8-year-old Emma had come to them 6 months earlier, orphaned by a cholera outbreak that had claimed her parents at a neighboring ranch. The girl's infectious laugh as Ryan guided the pony in circles filled Katherine's heart with contentment. Letter came for you, Preacher announced, handing her an envelope. From Denver. Katherine's happiness faltered momentarily, but she opened the letter calmly. As she read, a smile spread across her face. Good news, the old cowhand asked. The best, Katherine confirmed. My father's coming to visit. Says he wants to meet the man who gave his daughter back to him. Her relationship with her parents had been another casualty of Richard's manipulation. Reconnecting with them through cautious letters had been part of Katherine's ongoing healing. Later that evening, as Emma slept and the ranch settled into nighttime quiet, Katherine and Ryan sat in their familiar spots on the porch, his arm around her shoulders. Any regrets? Ryan asked, as he sometimes did. Katherine shook her head. Not one. Everything that happened, even the worst parts, led me here. To you, to Emma, to this life. Sometimes the longest journey is the one from running away to running towards something, Ryan observed. Katherine leaned into his embrace, thinking of how far she had come from that terrified woman fleeing on an exhausted horse. I'm glad you rode beside me until I was ready to stop. I'd have followed you forever if needed, Ryan said simply. As stars appeared overhead, Katherine Wade thought about paths taken and choices made. She had stopped running, not because there was nowhere left to go, but because she had finally found where she belonged beside a man whose patience and courage had taught her to trust again, in a place where her past had no power over her future. The healing hadn't been instant, and some scars would always remain, but Katherine had learned that some journeys weren't about the destination. Sometimes the most important part was finding someone willing to ride beside you, no matter how difficult the trail.